Hello, in this video we are going to start looking at how to use CSS code to add style to a web page. So far in this tutorial series we've been using HTML or hypertext markup language, and HTML code is just used to add content to a web page. So we've used HTML to create a head section and a body section, and in the body section we've been using HTML to add content, so things like headings, paragraphs, lists, images, videos, and so on. But HTML on its own makes web pages look pretty boring. We've got plain text, plain headings, there's not much color, there's really not much style. So that's where CSS comes in. And CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. And with CSS code, we can add style to a web page or a whole website. It's used to create a theme. So we can use CSS to maybe change the color of text, change background color, organize content into columns or center things in the middle of the page. We can use it to add animations, change our fonts, all sorts of different things. So CSS adds style and can be used to create a theme for a website. And there are three methods of adding CSS code. We can either add CSS code directly to different elements on our web page. So for example, this heading here, we could add CSS code here in the H1 tag to say, make the heading red, for example. And that's called inline styling, where we add CSS code individually to each element on the web page. For example, changing this paragraph here or changing this paragraph here. We actually add the CSS code here in the tag. That's inline styling. Second method is called an internal style sheet, and that's where somewhere on our web page we use a style tag to add all of the CSS code for the whole web page. So we can add all of the code that's going to make headings a different color to paragraphs, and maybe change the background on the website, maybe make on the web page, maybe make it a different color or use an image, add animations, things like that. So we can add all of the CSS code in one dedicated section on the web page between some style tags like this. We can add all of the CSS code just in that one area. Either in the head section or the body section will work. And the third method is called an external style sheet, and that's where we can create a separate file, a CSS file, so it ends in .css, and all of the code for all of the CSS code for the entire website can be stored in that file, and then we can just link each page to that file so it can reference that code. All right, during this series, we're going to look at all three methods. To start off today, we're going to look at the first method, which was inline styling, so just styling individual elements on the page by adding CSS code in the tags. And we do that by adding the style attribute to each element. So, for example here, I've got a heading and I've added a heading and two paragraphs here, and I've just got this heading is red, this text is blue, and this text is green with yellow background. And if we go and view this web page in the browser, we can see that that's not the case. That's not red, that's not blue, and that's not green and yellow. But what we'll do is add the style attribute to this heading, this paragraph, and this paragraph. And with the style attribute, we'll specify different properties like change the color or change the background color. So to do that, we just add a space in the tag. So for example, the H1 or H1 size heading tag that we have here, add a space, and then we just say style equals. And in these quotation marks, we can add our style information. So to change this heading to red, all I need to do is add the property color and specify a value, which is red. So I can say color red, just like that. Now, it's important to note that the word color needs to be spelt the American way, so C-O-L-O-R, no U. And then we can just add the word of the color after a colon. And then when we've finished adding style information, when we finish adding information about the color, like which color we want, we end it with a semicolon. Just like that, within the quotes. So here we have the style attribute, and inside the quotation marks there, we've specified color, colon, and then the color that we want, and finish with a semicolon. So if I save that code and go back and refresh the page, that heading is now red. Okay, if we wanted to make this paragraph blue, we can do the same thing here. We can say p style equals and then color blue and end that with a semicolon. Okay, save, refresh, and that text is now blue. All right, but in the next example, I want to make this text green, but I also want it to have a yellow background. All right, it's not going to look that nice, but just to see how we can change two properties. So I'll do the same thing as before. I'll add this style attribute, but in the quotation marks, rather than just specifying the color, I'm also going to specify the background color. So I can do color green. So color just changes the text color, but if I want to change the background color, I can use background color, which is background hyphen color. And I'll say yellow. Okay, so I've added two properties here, the color and the background color. And I can keep adding more properties if I want to, but just add a semicolon at the end of each property that I'm specifying. Let's save and refresh that. And there we go, got green text with a yellow background. All right, so that's how to change the, that's how to use inline styling to specify the style that we'd want for an individual element on the page, like a heading or a paragraph. Before we move on, as you can see here, we've just used the words of colors. So I've used red, blue, green. I could use orange, yellow, black, white, all sorts of different colors. But you might want to use a very specific color or a specific shade of a color, and that's where hexadecimal codes come in, or HTML color codes. So to show you an example here, I'll just scroll down on this website, it's htmlcolorcodes.info. I have a color picker here, and I can choose all sorts of colors here. I might want to, for this red heading here, I might want to choose a specific shade of red. So I could pick red here on this bar, and then I might say I want to use this red right here, or right here. So I can click that, and I've got a code here that's generated. Now, this is what's called a hexadecimal code, or a HTML color code. It starts with a hashtag, and the code contains 6 letters and numbers. So it uses the hexadecimal number system, which means it uses digits 0 to 9 and letters A to F in this code. The first 2 characters here are used to represent or indicate the intensity of red. Then these two here are used to indicate the intensity of green, and the last 2 digits are used to represent the intensity of blue. So red, green, blue. Okay? Now, these combinations of letters and numbers can represent up to 256 values for each color. So we can have 256 possible levels of intensity of red, 256 possible levels of intensity for green, and 256 possible levels of intensity for blue as well. So that means when we combine all of these letters and numbers to create a code, that we can have over 16 million possible colors to choose from. All right, so there's 256 levels of intensity for each of those 3 colors, and we can basically combine the intensity of red, green, and blue to mix any color we like, pretty much. So we've got about 16 to 17 million possible colors that we can use. So what I can do is take this code, I'll just copy that, and rather than typing in the word here, I'm going to say color and then paste in that code. And you've got to make sure that you start it with a hashtag. If you're using Visual Studio Code to write your code, you'll also notice it actually shows a little box showing you the color that you've typed in. And sometimes you get a little pop-up as well where you can actually change the color directly in the program. But let's save that and go back and refresh the web page. And now we can see like it changes to a different shade of red. So I could do the same thing for blue. I might want a bit of a lighter blue, maybe a bit more of an aqua sort of blue. So I could copy that code and replace it here. Oops. Paste that in there. Go back and refresh the web page after saving it, and it's updated there. So HTML color codes or hexadecimal color codes are very useful for getting specific colors or specific shades of colors that we want. Now, let's say we want to apply the same style to several paragraphs or several headings or elements on the same page. All right. Let's say we wanted quite a few paragraphs of text that were blue. All right. Well, what we can do is we can add an internal style sheet to our web page. So we can use the style tags to add an internal style sheet to the web page in the head or in the body section. And then we can basically say, make all paragraphs blue or make all paragraphs red and so on. So what I'll do is I'll remove the style tags from here. Actually, I'll leave the heading as it is for now, but I'll remove the style tags, the style attributes from the paragraphs here. And I'll just do this. So I'll say this text is blue, this text is also blue, and this text is blue too. All right, what I'm going to do is add some CSS code that is going to make every single paragraph on this page blue, just by saying by using the P selector or paragraph selector to make it blue. So what I'll do in the head section, I'll add the style tags up the top there. So it's easy to find. If we want to change the theme for this page later, we can just scroll to the top and change the style code there. And what I'm going to do is, if I want to make all the paragraphs blue, I can just use the paragraph selector or P. So put it in P. And then between these curly braces, I can specify all the information about paragraphs, so all the style information for paragraphs. So I can change the color here. I can change the background color. I can change the font style, font size, and things like that. So, for example, I'll say color blue. And now what that's going to do is it's going to look for all paragraphs on this page. So all elements on this page that use the P selector or P tag, and it's going to make them blue. All right. So if we go back to the web page and refresh it, all of the text that's a paragraph is now blue. All right. Now I could do the same thing for headings. So I might have one heading here that's red and another heading here that's also red. All right, so in the style tags, I can just add H1, and between the curly braces, I can say color red. Just like I did before in the style attribute I added when I was using inline styling. But instead, I'm just putting it between these curly braces after naming the element selector and between these style tags. So this is what's called an internal style sheet. All of the style code for this entire web page is all between these two style tags here, the open and close style tags. So that's a style sheet. We can also put this style code in a completely separate file, and that would be called an external style sheet, but we'll look at that in another video. So I'll just save that. I go back and refresh the page, and now I've got two headings that are red. So I basically said apply all elements that use the H1 selector or H1 tag and make them all red. All right, now if we wanted to add more information, like maybe the background color, and for all paragraphs, I might want to make it a background color of yellow. I can do that as well. So I can add more and more lines and just make sure that I end each line with a semicolon. But we can add as much style information as we want there for each of those elements there. Now, obviously this is pretty ugly, this web page at the moment, but that's just to demonstrate how we can change each of the properties for one type of element on a page, for paragraphs or for headings or for anything else. So we can use any tag that we have in our body section. We can use any tag to change the style for. If we had an image on this web page that used the image tag, then we could use the image selector and resize all images to be square. We could specify the width and the height for all images. If we had a H5 style heading, we could add H5 selector there and specify all the style we want for H5 settings, for H5 headings. Same for things like unordered lists or ordered lists or list items. Links using the A tag or anchor tag. So whatever element we have on a web page, whatever tags we use, we can specify a style for in CSS code. All right, that's it for this tutorial. In the next one, we'll start looking at external style sheets, and we'll also start, so basically so we can apply a theme to a whole website, not just individual pages. And then from there, we'll start looking at how to use CSS code to change things like font style, font size, organize the content on the page, centering things, that kind of thing. So that's it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching.